Hey, everybody, and welcome. My name is Rob Phelan, also known as the FI Educator, and I'm so glad you're joining us today. This is a really big guest for the FI Educator guest speaker series, and it's going to be the last one for season one. So the school year is coming to an end. You're all about to get out for summer break, which I'm sure you're very excited about. And I wanted to bring a big guest in to talk to us about investing, because investing is one of the kind of end parts of a personal finance class. You should get to the end. You should have learned all of the things about managing your money, budgeting, creating more income, setting up your accounts, all of that stuff. And then investing is that part that we should be ready to turn on very soon. But a lot of times we're like, I'm still not quite there yet. I'm not ready. I don't feel like I can do this. And Yanely is here today to talk to us about the different types of accounts that are available to you and which ones are right for you right now. What are the pros and cons, and how do I actually get it started? Yanely is the author of the recent released Mind Your Money book, which looks like this. It actually came out only 2 days ago. So this book looks really interesting and something that's going to be perfect for teens based on what I've read so far. It's all told through stories. So Yanely has a ton of different stories that really resonate with, I think, young people. It's a lot of the things that we did in our late teens, early 20s. And she made a lot of those mistakes that we hear about people making, and then also how she turned it around and got control of her money and helps you set money goals and achieve those. So if you're looking for a book to pick up this summer that will help you kind of get motivated, stay on track, learn about money as you go, I think this is going to be a really good book for you. And just once again, that's called Mind Your Money by Yanely Espinal. And she's also the host of a new podcast. So if podcasts are your thing, this podcast is called the Financially Inclined Podcast through Marketplace. Sort of like what you get in a personal finance class, a lot of mini lessons about different topics that come up around money, all done in a very kind of short, condensed episode, usually 30 minutes or less, which I really like. And that could be another great place to just sort of learn a little bit after the school year finishes, because that's what this is all about. You're going to learn a lot in your personal finance class, but there's always more to learn. You're never done learning. And there's so many great resources out there for helping you to learn about money.
Hi, thank you so much for that introduction, Rob. That was so great.
Thanks for joining us today. We had Jeremy Schneider on, who talked about index funds, the myths that stop people from getting started with investing. So, and I saw this in your book as well, that people talk about, the lack of knowledge, the lack of money, and that fear of losing money as 3 big things that stop people from getting started. And if you want to kind of learn more about getting over those, please check out that episode with Jeremy. It's probably going to be linked at the end of this video if you're watching the replay. But we are going to talk about the types of accounts that are available, the kind of nuts and bolts of getting started. Nice. Are you ready to get started?
I'm ready.
Okay, so your book, I'm going to kind of come back and forth to it a lot because there's some really great stories in there. The first one you talked about was like just that money is something that we see a lot of influencers, experts around, and they make it sound a lot more complicated than it actually really needs to be. Like the words you used were, I need real talk and I need real language. Like, why are you using these really hard words for something that could be explained a lot simpler? Right. Is investing one of those things as well?
Definitely. I think investing is probably the number one because, I think there's a few reasons why. First of all, it can be overly complicated by people who benefit from it seeming complicated, right? Like the investing space is one of the spaces where you can actually pay someone to manage your investments for you. And so a lot of those professionals, like, of course, they want to make more money. They want more clients. So the more complicated and scary investing seems to people, the more likely they are to get a lot of clients and get people to pay them to handle it for them so that they don't have to worry about all this complicated stuff. So there actually are a lot of people who have a vested interest in keeping the investment space as a space that feels like it's too complicated, like it's too difficult for a regular person to do it. But thank goodness, I think that there's been a lot of people on social media trying to show the opposite of that is true and disproving that. Like Jeremy, your previous guest. I mean, Jeremy's awesome. On Personal Finance Club shows how basic this stuff actually is. And that, yes, you can get to more higher level complicated topics, but you don't need to do that to build wealth. All you need is the basics, which are actually pretty simple. So, I mean, I try to do the same thing, just encourage people to just get the basics. Don't feel like you need to be like picking individual stocks and watching charts and trading and doing all that kind of stuff, unless you have, aspirations to actually work on a trading floor at a stock market exchange. If not, Be a regular person, live your life, love what you do, be a good person, and just automate your investing in the background. It's actually pretty easy to do and very simple.
Yeah. When you talked about like your journey starting to invest, like your vision of what investing actually was, I feel like I had the exact same one where you imagine like that floor in Wall Street where people are like waving these pieces of paper around and yelling at each other. I've never understood how anyone actually got anything done in that space. But yeah, that's what I thought it was too, but it's not.
Yeah.
All you need, and you said this as well, you just need an internet connection and you can do this. But you also said 94% of people have an internet connection, but only just over half are actually invested. So there's this huge gap of people who have the ability to do it and aren't taking us up on that. So we want to try and help you all with that today, to get you over that first step of let's just get the accounts open. Even if you're telling me right now you don't have the money to invest, that's totally fine. But let's get your accounts open so that when you are ready, you can turn this thing on as soon as possible. And you can do this with as little as $1. Like this does not take much.
I love that point about just opening the account, because I think a lot of people actually feel like they need money to open an account. Opening an account is free. And I think this actually comes from a lot of the banking industry. I want people to understand that banking and investing are completely different. Some banks also offer investment accounts. And that's why a lot of people get confused and think that banks are the same as investment banks, but they're different. Investment banks specifically focus on investments and investment accounts. And so they're actually, because of that, they're brokers. They allow you to actually access the stock market. So they're called brokerage firms, which is just another fancy term for investment bank. They allow you to create an investment account there versus a regular bank that offers you a checking account, a savings account, or a spending account. These banks don't actually offer you to buy stocks and bonds inside of your checking account or your savings account. No, you can't do that because they're different things. So when you have a bank account, sometimes they'll tell you if you have less than $50, you have to pay $5. You have to pay because you don't have enough of a balance, or you just have to pay a maintenance account fee of $3 a month just to have your account open. And so people hear those things about the banking industry and they just assume that it must be the same thing for investing. But it's not. It costs you $0 to log in and open an account. And it's just as easy as creating a TikTok account or an Instagram account or any other account on social media. You just put your personal information, create a username and a password. Boom. Now you have an account in your name.
Yeah. And we'll come back to that in a second, just for the steps of what you need to do to get started. But you sound like you did this your entire life. Like you're throwing out so many big words. You're saying it really fast. I'm like, this sounds so natural. Like, yes, you must have grown up in a family that talked about money all the time. That's why you do this, isn't it? Because you were surrounded by money your entire life. It's not the case at all, right? Is it?
No, right. And I think a lot of people might assume that because it's true. It almost feels like a foreign language. Like you kind of have to learn the language of investing, which you do. But at the same time, I always tell people, look, I didn't grow up in a household where anybody talked about money. My parents are immigrants. They were low income. They still are to this day. Right now, their only source of income is the money that their children give them with me and my siblings and their Social Security check, which is very small. So they don't have a lot of income. And they just, the cards that they were dealt in life, they weren't able to access high paying jobs and they didn't have degrees or even high school diplomas. So the cards fell where they did and they did the best they could with what they knew. But for me, the knowledge that I have and the reason why I know so many vocabulary words and things about the stock market is because I've read dozens and dozens and dozens of books. And I always tell people who ask me, like, if you could go back and be 15, 16 again, what would you do differently? And I always say the number one thing I would do is read 20 money books, 20 personal finance books before my 20th birthday. If I had done that one thing, if I had read 20 different books about the stock market, about money management, budgeting, credit, understanding the psychology of money, by my 20th birthday, I would have been set. Like, I think I would have had a head start compared to so many other people around me in their 20s. So that's what I would give to any young person watching this right now. If you're a teenager, like, write it down and commit to it and have it in your mind that by your 20th birthday, you better have read 20 different books about money and personal finance, because that's how you'll be able to be even better than me when it comes to the terminology, the vocab, and like the lingo of investing.
And I just want to add to that, like find other people who are interested in doing this as well, because you talked about, growing up, you have the story in your book about, you're shouting up 2 stories outside, like, and it's just the community you're in, people did that. And you started shouting like that your mom was in was it the welfare line or something like that to pick up food stamps.
That's
and your
right.
sister kind of slaps you across the head. Like, why are you talking about this? This is something that you don't talk about. This is shameful. Like we're not financially well off. And that's something to be embarrassed about.
Right.
Like for anyone who's in that kind of position right now, like, I don't got money. My family doesn't have money. This is not going to be something for me. Like, can you give us some words of advice here about how this can be done?
Yeah. I mean, I think you alluded to it, like the point of if your people around you, like in your immediate neighborhood, in your household, in your friend crew, if those people don't have that mindset that you see that you want to try to get, then it's okay. You don't have to push them to the curb. You don't have to, ditch these friends or cancel your family. Like, you don't have to do that, but you do have to add. It has to be an additive thing in your life where you're adding more influences from people that do have that mindset or are interested in those things. The easiest way to access people like that is on social media, like follow so many different people who post about money. And as you're scrolling on social, you're going to start to see like a bunch of these posts, and they're quick educational bites, on TikTok, 30 seconds or even a minute sometimes, but quick little nuggets. And you just start learning little by little. And they also recommend books and blogs and podcasts. So you start checking those things out. And little by little, that's how you learn. It's not going to be like today, you're going to master investing in this webinar. Like, no, but at least this is exposure. You got a couple of things that you're going to take away and you'll do them. And then little by little, you get more exposure and more knowledge. So social media was my go-to. My parents don't even speak English, so I couldn't talk to them about the stock market. They don't even understand, some basic things about money. I couldn't really get them to understand those higher level things. But I knew that if I went on social media and connected with other people who were like money nerds and who cared about investing and building wealth and understanding the type of accounts and different, terms, like I knew that would be a place where I could connect with those people and create that community, even if it wasn't in my real life.
And a question came in from Derek, and I think this really plays in nicely about, you also shared, like you didn't just consume, you shared about your journey and about what you figured out along the way. Because he asked, like, what made you want to be helpful? So, your moniker must be helpful. Like, what made you want to share your journey along the way? Was it just a willingness to share, or was this the accountability that really helped you stay on track as well?
Honestly, the accountability was just like a bonus. Like, I didn't even think about that. When I created my YouTube channel, I didn't think, oh, this is going to help me stay accountable. I was honestly just thinking as a teacher, like, you're a teacher, Rob. So, we're always trying to help. We always want to help students, want to help other teachers. Wherever we could come in and just help somebody learn something or understand something better. I mean, that's what you do as a teacher. That's your calling, to help teach others. And I was a teacher before I turned to financial education. So I taught elementary school. And I know that in elementary school, you have to speak a certain way because your students are like no older than 10 years old. My class was third grade. They were all 8 years old. So I had to teach them things like fractions. How can you teach fractions to a child that's 8 years old? You have to bring it down to the most basic level, and you can only use basic words because an 8-year-old child is not going to understand advanced vocabulary yet. And so you can't really use adult vocabulary all the time. And so that grew in me this skill of taking a topic that could be a little tricky, like understanding fractions, and bringing it down to a really simple lesson with simple language that even an 8-year-old kid could understand the concept and get excited about learning about this. And so I knew I had that ability. I was like, all right, I could do this with money. I could kind of like translate all these books that I read about money that have all these fancy terms and stuff. I could be the translator to just bring it to that real talk type of conversation that I felt like I wish I had that. So for me, it was more a passion to helping people. And I attribute that to my parents. I will say, like, the very first page of my book, the dedication says, I dedicate this for Mommy, Papi, and the Espinal family, which is all 8 of my brothers and sisters. And I said, thank you for the values you've instilled in me, especially being of service to others. That was the big thing in my household that my parents pushed on us because they grew up very poor. They never had much, but they always found a way to give and help and serve others. And they really ingrained that in me, that, the type of person you are is not measured by how much money you have or your accolades or your success. It's about how many people's lives you impact and help.
I love that so much. And yes, like the ability to break something down into simple terms and share it with others is a really big skill. And, if any of you are watching and you feel like, yeah, I can do that, like maybe a teaching career is something that you should consider, because that is not something that everybody can do very well.
That's right. That's right.
It's a calling. We need more financial educators out there.
Yes.
So this is the call for you as you're going into summer. Think about it. Okay. So let's get into the main part of this, investment accounts. So we have options, and in your book, you described it as a suitcase. Like, you wouldn't go to airport checkout or TSA carrying all your loose items. They're all inside of a container. And that container in this case is going to be our investment account. What are some different options we have in terms of accounts that we can use for investing? And then we'll come back to talk about the pros and cons of each.
Yeah. So the first thing is that when you're picking an investment account, you have to understand that some of them have special advantages and perks, and some of them don't, right? So obviously, if you have a choice between getting advantages and perks or not, you're going to be curious about, okay, well, what are the perks? You know, like I want to know about these perks and advantages. Why would I not take advantage of it? So that's the first thing, is that some accounts have those advantages, and the perks and advantages are specifically about paying taxes. So anytime you make a dollar in this country, in the United States, you are going to be taxed on that dollar. But the way you make the dollar determines how much you're taxed, or how you're taxed. So if you make that dollar by earning it, by doing labor, working and earning that income through a job, then you're going to be taxed income taxes. But when I learned about investing, I heard of a term that is capital gains taxes, which is a completely different level. You actually, oftentimes, if you hold your investments for a long time, you will pay much less in taxes if you pay capital gains taxes instead of income taxes. So I realized, like, oh, wow, I have to try as much as I can to, yes, I'm making my income and I'm paying income taxes, but if I can also get capital gains, then I'll pay lower taxes, pay capital gains taxes, and be able to use my money and make my money work for me more. So that's the first thing. Do you care about if you're paying a lot of taxes and income taxes or not? That matters to a lot of people, because taxes, believe it or not, is the number one biggest expense of your life. A lot of people say, no, it's college. That's why the student loan debt is so high. Oh, it's my house. That's why the mortgage that I take out is going to be really high. No. Taxes trumps your college degree and your house. You're paying taxes every single year that you are earning money. Every time you make money, you're taxed on it. So you add that up for your whole life. Taxes are the number one biggest expense in your life. So if you can lower that and keep more of your money working for you, that's a big deal. So that's kind of the first thing to understand. Once you know that, okay, you're going to start to look at the tax advantaged accounts first, because you want to save on those taxes. And so there's a few tax advantaged accounts, and they're broken down by what the taxes are going to be giving you a break for. So specifically, retirement is usually the first thing you get a tax break for. So if you open an investment account that is meant for retirement, which means you're committing to put this money in this investment account and you're going to let it grow and grow and grow and grow. You won't really take it out, touch it, or check up on it until retirement, because it's a retirement account. And when you do that, the money that grows in that account, or the money that you put in, will have tax advantages. And that will just depend on the type of retirement account. So there's a few. If you get your first job and they offer you a retirement plan at the job, that's really nice. That's going to be like a 401k for public servants, for teachers. It will be a 403b. And those letters and numbers, like, that's just a section of the tax code that the IRS has made up. So you know where to find, in what section of the tax code can you find information about the tax advantages of this type of account. So 401k is a section of the tax code where you can learn about the tax perks and tax advantages of investing in your workplace retirement plan called your 401k. Same thing with the 403b, and there's a few others. But then some people, they don't have a job that offers them a 401k. Maybe they work part-time, or they work hourly, or they do like service industry work where they get cash a lot of the time, and they don't have a company that, gives them this formal retirement plan as a benefit at work. Well, if you don't have one, that's okay. You can open one by yourself, but the company is not going to do it for you like they do with the 401k. They open that for you. But with the IRA, it's called individual retirement account, because you, the individual person, has to open your own retirement account. The company that you work for isn't going to have anything to do with it. So you either have a workplace retirement plan that gives you tax advantages, that's like your 401k, your 403b, or if you don't, you can open one by yourself called an individual retirement account. And the letters that represent that are IRA.
Okay, lots there. So quick recap. The first division is going to be about the taxation on the money that goes into your account. So are we going to have a tax advantaged account, meaning there is some perk to using this account when it comes to taxes, or not? A not tax advantaged account is typically called a brokerage account. I can't think of another one that's not tax advantaged. Can you?
No, that's it. It's going to be a standard, or people call it different things. Some people call it general taxable brokerage account. Some people just call it taxable investment account, and they don't say brokerage account because they don't want to confuse people. But investment account and brokerage account mean the same thing. So just know that if it's a general investment account or general brokerage account, taxable is implied. Like you're going to be paying taxes on this because it doesn't come with the tax perks of a tax advantaged account. So anytime you hear general brokerage account or just brokerage account, in your head, kind of like know that there's an invisible word in front of that, which is taxable, taxable brokerage account, taxable investment account, unless it has a special reason why it's not taxable or why it's tax advantaged.
Okay, so then we go over to the other side of that division and we have these tax advantaged accounts.
Yeah.
Retirement accounts are typically tax advantaged. Reason, the government wants to encourage you to save for your own retirement, so you're not
That's right.
dependent on government programs when you get older.
That's
So
right.
pension
And not
system
just say,
kind of
and not
dies
just
away.
save for retirement, not save for retirement, invest for retirement. So that's one of the things I'm always pushing people, because we always say the government wants you to save for retirement. No. You can't save for retirement, because if you save for retirement, you're never going to have enough to retire. You're going to always try to be saving, and savings doesn't keep up with inflation. We know that, especially with high inflation right now. So saving for retirement, let's just get that out of our mind completely. And let's use the language of invest for retirement, because that's what these retirement accounts are. They're investment accounts, not savings accounts that you could open at the bank. That's different.
Yes, exactly. And a couple of things that will dictate what types of accounts you can have. Your age, first of all. So like, are you going to have a regular account or a custodial account? If you're under 18, you're going to have custodial accounts. Are you employed? If you are employed, you might get an account through your employer. So the examples given were a 401k or a 403b, or if you're in the military, it might be a TSP. So these are ones that your employer is basically saying, hey, you can sign up for this through us. There's usually some perks involved, like there's maybe cheaper assets involved or things like that, but it's not really anything different to what you can do on your own, which is called an individual retirement account or an IRA. And you can have multiples of these. Like you can have all of them, you can have one of them. It just depends on your situation.
And I always tell people, don't overcomplicate it. Like, you just start with one, start learning, and then you can always add a second one later. But like, I started with just one account, and I was like, let me just get this one and let me understand what I'm doing here before I start having multiple accounts. But in terms of the main difference between your employer or your job giving you an account, like a 401k or 403b, or like my little brother's in infantry, he's in the Army, he has a TSP. All of those accounts, the nice thing about them is that the amount of money you could put in is capped, right? The government only has a certain dollar amount. You can't pass that. You can't put more money than the government allows. But with the employer sponsored plans, like your 401k, 403b, TSP, the amount is way higher. It's like over $20,000 that you can put in each year that comes directly out of your pay before your pay gets taxed. Then when you look at the IRAs, like an individual retirement account, like a traditional or Roth, which we'll talk about the difference. But when you look at an IRA that you got to open yourself, you can go onto any brokerage website. You can just pick one, open it by yourself. But the amount of money you can put in is way lower. This year, it's $6,500. Last year, it was $6,000. The year before, it was $5,500. So you see it's slowly going up a little bit because they're trying to reflect, like, be fair, because like inflation is so high. They're trying to get people to put a little more. But $6,500 is nothing compared to over 20,000 that you can put in. So that is the big difference. Like, some people say, well, then why would I do the 401k at my job if I could just open an IRA by myself? Like, well, yeah, but you could open an IRA and then you can't put more than 6,500 in it. And if you want to invest more than that, the 401k allows you to do more. So those are kind of the main differences too.
Yeah. And there are some other accounts out there. I don't really want to go into them today, but like a 529 plan is another place where you can invest your money, and that's for college savings. So some of you may have one of these in your name. Or a HSA, which is a health savings account, allows you to invest money for health related expenses. If you want to learn more about those, either read a book, look them up on Google, things like that. Let's not go into there today, because the whole purpose is to keep it simple. Yeah,
we definitely want to keep it simple. I will say too, like those have special reasons. So how I was saying earlier about, like, the first thing you want to ask yourself is, do I really care about getting tax perks? Because if I do, I'm going to look at the tax advantage accounts first. The first category is retirement accounts, are the first ones that give you tax perks for retirement money. Then the 529 plan that you mentioned gives you tax perks when you use that money for education. And then the HSA, the health savings account, as you know, in the name it says health, then that one gives you tax perks when you use it for your health and medical costs. So depending on what you need in your life, you're going to open the accounts that make sense for you. I have one of my cousins has a lot of medical needs. Like, she takes so many medications and she's constantly going to the doctor. It makes sense for her to have a health savings account so she can cut down on her taxes for her health expenses. Me, I'm like, barely go to the doctor. I barely get sick. I'm so lucky. And I just don't really, like, I don't need to have a health savings account. I have one anyway, but like, in terms of making a decision about which accounts you want to have, I think everyone, no matter what, needs a retirement investment account, because, like, back in the day, pensions were very common. Well, you would get a job and they would just give you a pension, and you stay working at that job for 30 years or 40 years. And then the pension, which is the retirement plan through the company, would always take care of you. So in retirement, you don't run out of money. That's not happening anymore. It's a very small percentage of workers in America that have a pension, even that pension even exists anymore. Now, all the rest of the people that don't have a pension is on you, is on me. We individually have to worry about our retirement and handle it ourselves. So if you don't sign up for a 401k or you don't open an IRA, you're basically not doing anything for retirement, and neither is your company. So what's going to happen when you reach retirement and you don't have any money? So this is why right now, retirement accounts, I believe every single person working in America needs to have a retirement investment account.
Yeah. So let's get straight into that. The accounts that you need. Retirement accounts, the one caveat with that, remember, is that this is for retirement. So if you have a shorter term savings goal than retirement, this is not going to be the best place to park your money. So as teenagers listening to this, thinking about what your goals are, hopefully you've been doing that during your personal finance class. It might be buying a car. It might be going to college or paying for a career certification of some sort. You may be like, I want to buy a house, or maybe you heard our talk with Craig Kurloff and you're like, I want a house hack very soon, so I need a down payment for that.
Right.
If those are shorter term goals, then retirement, at least in the IRA or the IRS's point of view, is 59 and a half. That's like when you're eligible to start taking money out of these accounts. So if you're like, I don't really want to, I want to touch the money before then, I want to use it for something, putting it in a retirement account is not the best place for it. In that case, you probably would want to use a brokerage account, which is the one that doesn't have the tax advantages that the retirement stuff does, but there's no limits on how much you can put in, and you can take it out whenever you want.
That's right. And there is one thing to know, and this is kind of where you kind of get a little bit technical. It's like when you're playing a certain game, right? You learn the basic rules, like you like Monopoly or like Uno cards, right? Like you learn the basic rules and you're like, oh, okay, all right, I'm ready to play. And then they're like, wait, actually there's like a technical rule. Like, wait, before we start playing, you got to know that sometimes this thing happens, right? It's kind of a little bit different from the rules, but so you got to know the main rules. And then there's always some little caveat, little asterisk, like something on the side to know. That's what's true about the Roth IRA. Yes, you cannot touch the money until you're 59 and a half, because if you do, it comes with double penalties. One, you're going to have to pay the taxes, and two, you're going to have to pay penalties for taking the money out too soon. But there are qualified exceptions, which means that little asterisk, that little extra special rule about the game is that if you have one of these very specific reasons that you need to touch the money early, you can, and there won't be a penalty. So one of those is college costs, which is something I think every high school kid needs to know, because if you're working in high school right now, you can open a custodial Roth IRA, start putting money in. It doesn't affect your FAFSA or your financial aid eligibility at all, because it's a retirement account. So they don't look at it. They look at your savings account. They look at your 529 plan. They look at your parents' accounts. But if it's a retirement account, they do not look at that. That's not fair. That's for retirement. So they don't look at it for college. However, there's a qualified exception that allows you to take the money from your Roth IRA before you're 59 and a half if you're going to use it to pay for college expenses. And of course, there's qualified education expenses. So there's specific things you can use it for. You got to look at those rules, the little terms and conditions, right? You got to look specifically, and it's all available on the IRS website. So if you just do a little digging, you can find out exactly what you can take money out early for. The second thing that I know for a fact, because I know people who have done this, is if they want a house hack or they want to start doing real estate investing, you can take up to $10,000 out of your Roth IRA of gains, of earnings. So if you put in $50,000 and it grew to $70,000, you could take out all the $50,000 that you put in, because that was already taxed and it's your money, plus another $10,000 of the gains in the Roth IRA, max of $10,000 total in your life, to go towards your first time home purchase. So that's something, again, like depending on what your goals are, you want to know those special little extra rules on the side, because they might come in handy. They might not, you might choose not to use them. Like me, I'm probably not going to do that. I'm just going to leave my money in the Roth IRA till I'm 59 and a half. That's my plan. But if I wanted a house hack, if I wanted to do real estate, or if I had some college expenses that I wanted to pay for, it's nice to know that there are some exceptions to the rules that allow you to tap that money a little bit sooner. Because I know 59 and a half seems real far away when you're 15, but there are some exceptions that you can use the money sooner if you need it for those qualified things.
And this, everyone, is like, this is a big level up in terms of your understanding of personal finance. I didn't even know those things before coming on here. So I'm always learning. I love that about this job. This is why we want you following people like Yanely on social media, checking out their newsletters, subscribing to the YouTube channels, because when you want to learn about these things, you want to have these people in your pocket that you're like, this is a trusted source of information. I will get good information from this person.
Yes.
Particularly around real estate and investing. Like there is no shortage of accounts out there that will give you questionable advice.
That's right.
So vetting your sources of information is super important. So make sure, you're checking out people like Yanely for advice. And even if you can't find what you're looking for there, ask us, or ask someone you do trust, like, who would you recommend for this? I'm sure we will have a name for you that will give you good information about this.
Definitely. And honestly, even if you follow me and you trust me, still don't take my word for it. Go research it after you hear me say it. Because, I could be wrong, right? I know 100% for a fact that I'm not wrong in this case, but you should find out 100% that I'm not wrong in this case by doing your own research. So to find out what specifically are those tax-free extra like perks in the side rules that are like the extra asterisks, right, of the game, you want to look up qualified distributions from a Roth IRA. And you can look that up, but I wouldn't click anything but the IRS website, which is irs.gov, because there's a lot of websites out there like NerdWallet and Bankrate and Investopedia. And don't get me wrong, I love all of those websites and I trust them all. But where do they pull the information from that they report? They take it from the IRS website. So just go straight to the source, go straight to the horse's mouth, go to irs.gov and look up the qualified distributions from a Roth IRA, and you'll know exactly what all those extra special rules are to see if some apply to you. And maybe not, but at least you'll know.
Okay. And now we've thrown out the word Roth and traditional a couple of times. I don't think we've formally discussed it yet, because in your book, you're like, Roth IRA is the GOAT. And tell us why. Why is Roth IRA the GOAT?
All right. The Roth IRA is the GOAT because anytime, like I said before, when you make money and you invest it and then you make profits or gains or earnings, that's the thing too about investing that it like irks me a little bit, because they don't just pick one word for something. They have like 3 different words and they all mean the same thing. Like, come on, just pick one and call it that. Like, why are you confusing us even more? So sometimes you will hear the word profits. Sometimes you will hear the word earnings. Sometimes you will hear the word gains, which is the one I like to use the most, because capital gains is taxes that you pay on the gains, the earnings, the profits that you make investing. So if you put in $50 into your investment account and it grows by $20, so now you have 70 total in your account, $50 of it was your contributions. That's what you contributed into the account. And then the extra 20 is your gains, also called your earnings or your profit. But it's annoying because they all mean the same thing. But anyway, so when you make earnings, gains, profits in your investment account, any investment account, those gains are going to be taxed. The IRS is looking at you like, oh, you made money in America? We want a piece. They always want their taxes. You always have to pay them the taxes that you owe them. But any account that has the word Roth in front of it, there was a man named John Roth who was a lawmaker, a politician, and he created a special section of the IRS code, a special rule that allows investment accounts that have the word Roth, his last name. Of course, he wanted to give himself credit for this rule, which is fine. Look, thank you to Mr. Roth, because the reason these accounts exist is because he made up this rule. But basically the rule says, don't worry about any of those tax rules around if you make earnings, profits, or gains. If you grow your money in an account, you usually have to pay taxes. But if it's a Roth account, you don't have to pay taxes on your gains. Again, that's the basic part of the game. The side rule is as long as you follow all these rules, right? Which is you wait till you're 59 and a half, you open the account for at least 5 years before you start tapping the money. There's different rules that you kind of got to learn. But still, the whole point is you could open a brokerage account. You can open a 529 plan. You can open so many different accounts, and they don't usually just let you take earnings, take the gains tax free. Like that is unheard of. It's like going to your job, working, getting a paycheck, and there's 0 taxes being taken out. Like what? And again, like I think young people, like when I was a teenager, this wouldn't have meant anything to me. I would have been like, so, because I didn't really care about taxes. But as you start learning the world of money and you start making more money, you're going to want to learn all the rules around taxes that help you pay exactly what you owe and not a penny more. Because if I go to the store and they tell me, this book costs $10, and I'm going to say, okay, well, I want to give you $12 for it. Why would I do that? The book costs $10. I'm going to pay you what I owe you, which is $10. And it's the same thing with taxes. If the IRS is telling you you owe this much in taxes, why would you pay more than that? So you want to know exactly what all of the rules are so you can follow them and pay exactly what you owe. There's a lot of people that pay way more than they actually owe in taxes because they don't learn the tax rules and they don't take advantage of these things like these deductions and all these special accounts. So yeah, once I started making like $60,000, $70,000, I started seeing the taxes. I'm like, oh my gosh, these taxes are really taking a big chunk of my paycheck and it hurts. Like I need that money. So I started learning like, oh, you can lower your taxes that you pay, but you got to do these special moves. You got to learn about these investment accounts. They have to be tax advantaged. And the one that is the best for tax advantages is the Roth IRA. You never pay taxes on gains as long as you don't take the money out to your 59 and a half. B, there are certain things you could take the money out before 59 and a half. Buying your first home up to 10K can be taken out of gains, plus any contributions you put in, you can take out. That's the key too, because when you open like a regular brokerage account, you just start buying stocks or ETFs that you like. If you take the money out, that same year that you took the money out, you're going to be paying taxes, right? Versus with the Roth IRA, because it's a retirement account, because it's Roth, the money that you put in has already been taxed by the government. So you're going to use income to put money into a Roth IRA. And this is actually a special rule, a very important rule to know. Anybody and everybody can't just open a Roth IRA. You have to have earned income. That means that you need to have a job, whether it's a 1099 job like Uber or, DoorDash, or whether it's a W-2 job, like you are the manager of the Gap. Whatever your job is, like you have to have some type of earned income that you get a check for. It can't be like you set up a little lemonade stand and just made some cash yesterday. Like that's fine. But technically, you really need to have some earned income that you report to the IRS, because that's the money that they're going to assume you're using to invest into this Roth IRA. So, and then also you want to make sure that you don't invest more than you make, up to $6,500. So a quick example, my niece, she opened a custodial Roth IRA. I helped her open it. I was the custodian for her because she was not 18 yet. So she couldn't open it by herself. But I went with her online. We opened the account and they were like asking her all these questions. And then just how much money does she want to put in total for the whole year? She put $3,000. And I was like, well, you can put like 4 or 5, like you can go up to 6,000. And she's like, but Thea, didn't you tell me that I can't put more than I make? And I was like, oh, that's true. How much money did you make at the summer camp? Because she just had one job for the whole year, which was summer camp. So I said, as a counselor at the summer camp, what did you make? And she said $3,000. And that's all I made this year. So I was like, okay, smart girl. She only put 3,000, because if she put more than $3,000, the IRS is looking at her like, wait, you made $3,000 of earned income, and then you somehow put $4,000 into the account. Where did you get this other $1,000 from? The math ain't mathin', right? Like, you're not being honest about how much you're making. So you can only put what you make up to 6,500. So if you make 7,000 in the year, you can only put 6,500. But if you make $1,000 in the year, you can only put 1,000, right? And that's why the IRS makes these rules, because it makes sense when you think about it from their perspective, but it's very important to learn those rules so that you don't break the rules. But I always say the Roth IRA is the GOAT, because you can take money that you put in out. It's after taxes, so you will never be taxed again if you wait till 59 and a half. But there's also qualifications that allow you to take the money out early if you need it for certain things like college or your first home. I mean, this is amazing. There's really no other account that allows you that many perks.
Yeah. And the key one here is that the money is after tax. So you get your part-time job, you get your paycheck, you have had taxes taken out. So you've paid your income tax to the government, to the state. And then now you're putting your money into this account and it's growing, growing, growing. You never have to pay tax on any of those gains. So you might put, say, like $30,000 in now, like, and in 40 years time, it's worth a couple million. You're only ever paying tax on that 30 something, 40 something thousand that you put in. Like, there's a huge amount of money out there that's not going to be taxed. The other side of it then is a traditional account. So Roth or traditional are the two main types of accounts that we have. That one is just, you're not paying income tax today. So it's kind of like the money's being taken out of your paycheck before the government gets to know about it, gets stored away in this retirement account. Same thing, it grows, grows, grows. But when you take the money out, now the IRS, the government looks at it like, oh, you just made some money, taxes, please. So you just pay taxes on whatever you take out as if that were your income. So
Plus
you think about
the capital gain. Plus the capital gains. But with the Roth IRA, you don't pay no taxes on the capital gains. That's the big difference. I don't think people understand how big of a deal that is. When you run the numbers, you pay the taxes on the withdrawals that you make. So as your income taxes plus the capital gains, versus your Roth IRA, you only pay the income taxes and you never have to pay taxes again, as long as you follow the rules.
It's huge. It's huge, everyone. And like, particularly for teenagers, you guys, you're not making enough money, especially if you've studied our US tax system, you're not making enough money to typically get taxed a lot, if anything, at all. So you could be putting money aside right now and you will never pay taxes on it, ever.
Ooh, that's
that is
amazing.
the huge one. That is the like the secret sauce right here, especially if you start young and you start early.
That's
The
right.
more money you make, the more it's going to cost you, because say like, at Yanely and I's income levels, we're going to pay a lot more in taxes now before we can start using that Roth account.
Yeah.
But you guys, you have full access to this, and it's almost free access.
It almost is. When I was like 15, 16, I was working at the Gap. And I think I was probably making like $7 or $8 an hour. It was a long time ago. Okay. I was like 15. This was about 15 years ago. And I got my paycheck. I worked there for like a few months between like the summer, like during the summers in college, but I never made more than like $8,000 or $9,000 for the whole year, because no matter how many hours I worked, I just couldn't make that much. I had school. So when you file your taxes, you're automatically going to get a standard deduction, which is going to be subtracted. However much income you earn, they're going to subtract a standard amount. So the standard deduction now is over $12,000, which is the highest it's been. So if you didn't even make $12,000, say you made $9,000 working this year, they're going to subtract $12,000 as soon as you file your taxes. You only made $9,000. So now you're getting an income tax refund. So you're not even paying taxes on that. Like it's wild to me that a young person who's making, a couple thousand in a year can put a piece of that and not have to worry about any taxes. I mean, it truly is a blessing. Like if you could take advantage of that, and it does not affect your college applications, because I know a lot of people will say, no, but if they're going to college, they should have a 529 plan. And I always say, but look, you have to pay attention to the FAFSA application. If your family is low income like mine, you really care about FAFSA. You care about the financial aid eligibility. You want to get the most financial aid that you can, because you need it. So a custodial Roth IRA is a much better place to put a couple $1,000s every year if you're working, versus the 529 putting a couple $1,000, because that's going to hurt about 5% of your award. It's not a lot, but listen, every dollar for college helps. So if you know you're on track to go to college and you're trying to choose between a 529 and a custodial Roth IRA, I always say the custodial Roth IRA, you need to know it won't affect your financial aid eligibility, and that's huge.
It is huge, guys. And I hope that's what you're taking away from this. All right. Yanely is a very hard deadline coming up in like 3 minutes. And there is that one question I always ask every guest. After Yanely goes, hang out for a couple more minutes. I have a couple of things I want to share with you about steps for how you can get your account started, plus that giveaway, a couple more details on it. So don't go anywhere after Yanely disappears. But Yanely, what is your number one piece of advice for teens when it comes to building wealth? And this can be an idea from your book, or it can be something that you're like, yes, this is what teens need to know when it comes to money.
Yeah, well, you're getting 2 from me, because you already got the read 20 money books before your 20th birthday. So that was a gem I gave you for free. Okay, the second one I'll say is that right now you have to constantly be thinking about things that nobody around you is thinking about. And that is hard. That is so hard, because nobody around you thinks it's cool. Nobody around you is even doing it. Nobody's talking about this. Nobody cares about this. When you're 15, 16, you care about everything around your social life, your friends, what you're wearing, your crush, where they at, what they're doing. There's things that you care about because it's relevant to your life as a teenager. But I'm telling you, if you could level up above everyone else that's your age and start focusing on these things that are coming up in a few years, but nobody else is on game yet. They're still paying attention to the 15-year-old things, 16-year-old things. Can you be ahead of the game and start thinking about, let me get on this 21-year-old like type of game. Let me get on what I'm doing when I'm 22 and start doing it when I'm 15 and 16. That is the number one master step that I wish I could go back in time and do, is to start paying attention to the peers that are like a couple years ahead of me. What are they thinking about? What are they talking about? Because that's coming up in your life. And if you could get ahead of that before you reach that point, you're going to be so proud of yourself. You're going to be so hyped that you've already gotten to things before you needed to. So, I mean, that's the best advice anybody has ever given me. Even now, like I'm in my 30s, I'm in my early 30s. A lot of my friends are in their 40s, in their 50s. I even have a friend who just turned 78 years old. He's a lawyer out in California. And every time I'm out in Cali, I go and have lunch with him or dinner with him, because the amount of stuff I'm going to learn from somebody who got so much more wisdom and so much more years under them, life lived, versus me, that's like getting lunch with like the wealthiest person in the world and being able to take notes, right? Like these are the types of thoughts that you got to have. This is the type of moves you want to make. And again, nobody's going to think it's cool. It's not going to be something that's going to be trending on TikTok. It doesn't matter, because you're putting yourself a couple steps ahead in the game.
And that's it. That is it, guys. Start now. Look for those peers. Surround yourself with the people that you want to be like. You want to do the things they're doing.
Yes.
Follow them on social media. If you don't have anyone in your immediate life who you feel like is doing this stuff, like you can find these people in so many different places, particularly in the online world.
Oh,
So yeah, start surrounding yourself with people that you want to be like, and make sure that you're checking yourself for who you are surrounding yourself with. And are they of the mindset that money can't be made, that we're always going to be broke, that money is just made to be spent all the time? If you're around that kind of influence all the time, it's going to
infiltrate your mind.
You. Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
Whether you think it will or not, it will. The amount of students I say, like, you know, who are you around, or how are they affecting you? Like, oh, my friends don't affect me. I'm my own person. Like,
that's right. That's right. That's what you think, but it's important to take steps to actually be that way. Oh my gosh, Rob, thank you so much. This was great. This was awesome. And I can't wait to keep connecting with everybody who's on here. Reach out to me on social, stay connected, because I'm always looking to help and just reach back too. Because I wish I had mentors that were ahead of me that were reaching back to help me out. So if you have questions or anything like that, feel free to follow me online, reach out to me.
Yanely, thank you so much. Talk to you soon. Thank you so much for being here.
Bye, everybody.
All right, everybody. So just a couple of things that I want to touch on before you dive away and do your accounts. Make sure that you're thinking about, how do I open my account? So we talked about 2 accounts that you probably should consider adding to your mix. So you should have a bank account already. If you don't have that, that is the number 1 spot to stop. Checking account, savings account is a good idea. But after that, a brokerage account is the one that you can open up where there's no tax advantages to it, but you can put money in and take it out as often as you would like. If you're under 18, this is going to be a custodial brokerage account. So just like your custodial bank account, you're going to have an adult open the account with you. When you turn 18, the adult is going to just basically fall off the account. They will automatically be taken off of it. It will become your sole account. But up until that point, they will have the ability to put money in or take money out. So just make sure it's a trusted adult that you're doing this with. You heard Yanely talk about doing it with her niece. So it doesn't have to be a parent. It can be any adult that you trust and who you think is a good, I guess, money manager, and someone you'd be willing to kind of sign up for something like this with. The other one is a Roth IRA. Now, you can only put money in if you have a job, but you can sign up for the account even if you do not. So remember, that's the difference. You can sign up for the account, you can get it open, and then once you're ready, you can start putting money in. To do any of these, your couple of quick steps: research different companies that offer these accounts. So if you're doing a brokerage account, you would do some research, like what are the top brokerage accounts out there? Don't go off of what you see on TV or in advertisements. Remember, they're paying money and they're getting that money from somewhere to afford these advertisements. Try and do your research online. Ask people like myself or Yanely who our recommendations are. Personally, I use M1 Finance for my brokerage account. I've used Robinhood in the past as well, both fine. I've had students using Webull, E-Trade, Cash App. Like they're all fine. They all do kind of basically the same thing. But do your research, make sure the reviews are good. On the IRA side, again, try and stick to companies like Yanely said that do this. This is what they do. They're investment banks, not just regular banks, not insurance companies, not cash apps on your phone kind of thing. Like this is something that is just for retirement or investing. Personally, I use Vanguard and Fidelity, but other ones out there include like Schwab, T. Rowe Price. Those are great, big, reputable firms that do a good job of kind of taking care of the customer. So with any of those, you won't go wrong, but make sure you do your own research before you pick one. If you are doing a custodial account, you're going to need your own information. So you're going to need your own social security number, your own mailing address. Your date of birth is the other piece. Hopefully you know that. If you're doing a custodial one, you need the custodian's information as well. So you need their social, their date of birth, their address as well. They should be there with you when you open this account. Once you enter all that information in, it's going to ask you for your bank account information. So you link this account to your checking account. That's why you need to have one of those. So you can find that information through your checking account app. So if, say you're using PNC or Bank of America or any of these big banks, you open up the app, you look for the account details. You're going to need the account number and the routing number. Those are the 2 pieces of information that help link a bank account. Usually it takes 1 to 3 days to verify that the account is real, that you're a real person, and to link the 2. Once you have that, you can start transferring money to your account, and then it becomes a case of picking your investments. And that is a totally different conversation, but I do recommend you check out the video with Jeremy Schneider, where we talked about index funds and getting started. That's a great way just kind of to kickstart your investing journey. Thank you everyone for being here today. I know there's some questions I did not get to. If you want to ask those again, put them in the comment section of the YouTube video that goes with this. We'll try and answer those for you. But there were some excellent questions in there, and hopefully we'll be able to get to them in a future video. this is the end of season 1 of the virtual guest speaker series. We will be back again in the fall, but thank you so much for joining me and appreciate your time.